Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to SMB Nation for our weekly webinar. Those of us in the U.S. know we're just 1 week out from arguably one of the first major holidays of the summer. So appreciate your time today and your focus. Know that, next week about this time you'll have one foot out the door to have fun with your family and friends. So thank you very much. A little bit of housekeeping on the SMB Nation front. So it is midday in Seattle, mid-afternoon over in the East Coast, and early evening over in Europe. We have 2 shows coming up that we'd like to encourage you to attend as you're able. So end of month, on the 31st, we have Los Angeles, a very robust crowd for the Office 365 workshop with a hint of Windows 10 and a focus on security. 2 days later, it's San Francisco. So you can learn all about this over at smbnation.com and click over on the roadshow advertisement and join us. We're wrapping it up for the first half of the year, and then we'll be back after July 1st with, at this point, we're planning 9 additional cities in the second half of the year. So thank you very much. With that said, let's get going. And I have Marcella, who's the Chief Marketing Officer from Transvault. So hello, and first of all, where are you located, and how are you doing today?
I'm good. This is number 2 in a series of webinars that we've been doing today.
Right.
So we're warmed up, a little tired. I'm on the East Coast, and we're finally seeing some nice warm weather, so that's exciting.
Well, there we go. Well, let's get going. I appreciate your community support, and I think we have another gentleman you'll be introducing. So let's get this party started.
Yep, absolutely. Hello, welcome, and thank you all for attending. Shift those PSTs to the cloud with confidence, part of our Mastering the Migration series. My name is Marcella Mazzucca, and I've spent most of my career in messaging. Today I will be charged with ensuring your questions get in front of our speaker, as well as ensuring you haven't fallen asleep by randomly calling on you throughout the webinar. No, just kidding. However, I will be on hand to make sure that we get the most interactive experience from this webinar. So why have we gathered across our PCs today? For years, IT admins, users, and the like have been plagued by their own version of discovery when it comes to PSTs. Whether it's finding the one you decided to save on your son's Ninja Turtle themed USB, or an IT admin who just got told that Teddy in finance is on extended leave and that we need to find the data that he decided to masterfully archive his way. PSTs have plagued you, us, and managers everywhere in some capacity, or you wouldn't have registered for this webinar, which coincides for some of you with lunch. However, with the cloud boom and the very power of Microsoft Office's own bottomless archive, it's time we deal with those somewhat transient files by hitting what we call the Transvault Easy button and shift those PSTs to the cloud, and not just shift them to the cloud, but to do it with confidence. Too good to be true? I figured you'd think that. So we decided to put our most honest guy on the remit of educating you on Transvault for the next 20 minutes or so. Some know him as Seriously Daglessly from his YouTube channel. Others call him names we cannot say on this webinar. We at the office, we call him Steve Dagless, the guy who is honest to a fault and in charge of our product strategy. And just an FYI, he's fighting a bit of bronchitis, so he will have to mute and cough at times. But without any further ado, Steve Dagless.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you very much, Marcella, for the introduction. Yep, my name's Steve, and as you can see from my bio, which I'm not going to bore you with by reading in full, I'm the guy that's been entrusted to tell you a little bit about Transvault and the cool technology that we have, and present to you as the solution for your PST problems. So before we begin with the more technical parts of the webinar, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Transvault as an organization. We were established in 2006, and we are the inception point for the market of email archive and PST migrations. And of course, being the first to market, our tenure and success is unmatched within the marketplace. We were the first archive migration software vendor to be certified by both Microsoft and Veritas. Of course, Veritas were formerly Symantec back then, and we've delivered over 1,200 successful migration projects. It's actually well past that now, with hundreds more projected in 2016 as the race for the cloud continues. A large proportion of these migrations have been to Office 365, and just in the last weeks, we've seen that migrations to Office 365 have now overtaken migrations of email into Enterprise Vault, Veritas's Enterprise Vault archiving system, which has been the standout leader target for email migrations for the vast bulk of that 10 years, if not all of it. Office 365 has now overtaken as this, this race to the cloud, it seems to be, is just well and truly underway, and we think that we're still just at the very bottom of the curve, to give you an indication of the take-up of Office 365. So we're helping to unlock a lot of the migrations that by taking care of the legacy emails to run alongside the primary mailbox migration, which can be a significant barrier to entry. So to date, we've influenced the migration of approximately 3 million seats of organizations, users moving their mailboxes to Office 365. Subsequently, Transvault is a very mature and proven entity, both in terms of our organization, our processes, how we support projects, and the partner community that we work with, and of course the software that's being trusted by here's a selection of the companies that have trusted us to deliver their migrations, and this is just a handful that we've picked from the last couple of weeks. You can see there we've got leading finance organizations who are trusting Office 365 with the compliant, regulated storage of their data into Office 365.
Aha! I think this might be my job now. Is that right, Steve? I think I'm on duty.
You are. You're on
Yep.
duty.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, now full disclosure, Ginny is on a badly needed, and I would offer necessary vacation this week at an undisclosed location. So I am actually running the radio control room, and let's give this a shot. Hold on a second, guys. I think I still know how to do the work. Here we go. Okay. Can you guys confirm? Do you see the quick poll?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, great. Folks, we're going to let that run for a second. We have 24% of you have voted, 29, 34%. You know what? This is like a magic map on CNN watching the Tuesday night election results. This is kind of cool. So let's let that come on in, folks. Cast your vote. We're just about to hit 60%. While we're doing that, if you came in a little bit late, Los Angeles on the 31st and San Francisco on the 2nd for the 0365 tour. Hope to see you there. Go to smbnation.com and click on the Roadshow logo. We're at about 70% voted, folks. If you could vote, please. And now I have to figure out how to close the vote. Here we go. 73%. I'm going to go ahead and close it. And let's see what that does. I have the results in front of me. Steve, do you see the results, sir?
I don't know.
Yeah, we see a dark screen.
Yeah, I see a dark screen as well. Let me share.
There
Now
we go.
maybe we have the results. Okay, folks, forgive me. I'm loose in the radio control room. So we came in at a tie. Now that's a close primary. Look at that, 41 to 41 with 19% unsure. Steve, any comments, or would you like to continue, sir?
If you can give me back control, and I can quickly comment, and then we can move on. So it's very interesting to see that we've got 40% of people know that they
there
have.
we go. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. I think controls come back to you, sir, if you want to display your screen.
No, I'm not getting an option to take it. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem, sir. I will. Oops. Hang on. So 4141, you were just commenting while I sort it all out.
Yeah. So 40% of you out there know that you have an issue with PST files, and so that's I guess it's great that you're here to hear what we have to say and to be able to do something about it now. For those of you 40%, one of the reasons we asked this question really was to see if anybody says
there you go.
No. If anybody says no, to ask, well, when you say no, you don't have a PST problem, does that mean you don't have PSTs, or you think that you don't have a problem? Because commonly what we find is when we install Transvault Insight into a company's network and we run our scan procedure and we run policies against that, we start to reveal hidden data that a company wasn't necessarily aware of was out there, and that, as we'll talk about later, that presents a risk. So for those of you who think no, you may well not have a problem, but our experience is that people believe that they don't have an issue with PST files, but actually under the surface, much like the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, there's a lot that lurks beneath the surface.
Well, Steve, so, I would even gather to say that the ones who answered not sure probably will eventually fall into that yes category, because if they're not sure, they probably have a gut feeling that something's there, but they just haven't done that scan yet.
Yes, and we typically find that confronting the fear of PSTs is actually the first milestone in delivering a PST migration project, actually getting your head around the issues of a migration project and uncovering those problems and facing up to them. So we're going to now move on to the webinar on how Transvault makes it easy to move PSTs. Our Move My PSTs initiative promises that we do so easily and efficiently by using our pioneering technology. So from your choice to attend today, we guess that you're asking yourself something like, what's unique about Transvault Insight, and how does it make the shift to the cloud easy, reliable, and fast? And the answer is that it's all in the very makeup of the product. So scalability is not limited by data size, volume, or the complexity of your storage infrastructure. Insight has built-in tracking so that you can shift your data with confidence and provide evidence of what has been moved, where, when, and any issues that you encountered along the way with your data. We have content-level, policy-based filtering that enables your custom policies can be taken into account. So whatever vertical you're in and whatever requirements that you've got for your data, you'll be able to use the metadata of the messages to control the policies that analyze your PST files at a message level and give you control over understanding of your PST estate. Our results are as seamless as they can be for a migration project, given what we're dealing with, distributed PSTs being moved to one centralized repository, hopefully in Office 365. So the user experience of accessing the messages is significantly improved as a result of using Insight. So the data ends up where you said that it really would be.
So, again, Steve, this is from my perspective as a user and not the most technical of sorts. I always struggle with change, any type of change, particularly with something like email that you use constantly. I mean, we're constantly on our emails, how we collaborate, communicate, how we get on with our day. So I imagine that there's always going to be frustration or change that occurs where you have to get used to a new environment if you're moving to a new platform. And I guess what we're trying to do with Insight is to make sure that the data arrives to that new platform in a way that it is seamless to the user, seamless from the perspective of your data being there where it's supposed to be. But you'll always have to deal with that change that means a new platform.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, hopefully, as we've said, hopefully the change is for the better, because I certainly, reflecting on my own experiences of before I started working for Transvault, and I used to create PSTs by using Outlook's auto archive function, just as a user within the organization. You know, I'd sometimes find that I could connect to PST files, sometimes I couldn't. I didn't really understand where they were. Of course, by taking those PSTs and taking the messages out of them and putting them directly into your primary mailbox or your in-place archive in 365, then what you're doing is making access to that data easier and more reliable. So at least once you've acclimatized to the new environment that you've got to work within, your data is going to be easily available to you. Moving on to some of the other aspects of Insight, it's underpinned by a piece of technology that we call Transvault CloudStream. CloudStream is our unique Office 365 ingestion protocol. It's simply the fastest method of getting data into Office 365 that's available on the market. We work directly with the guys in the Office 365 products team in Redmond. We have great relationships with a number of teams within Microsoft, the Azure team, the consultancy services, MSGD, and the products teams. And so we collaborate with them when we're designing our software in order to make sure that we are bypassing any pitfalls of the ingestion protocols to Office 365, maximizing the way that we can get the data in there. We've got over, as we've said, we've got over 1,200 projects behind us, some of them very, very complex, very challenging, and these have really shaped Transvault as an organization and made us expertly engineering-led, so that we have unparalleled experience and success with migrating data. And we're 100% channel focused. We have a pure partner approach to delivering our software, and by nature we're very selective about who can become a Transvault partner, and we have entrusted our solutions to only the very best of the best, creating a global network of experienced and highly professional partners. And we're always looking to add to that to be able to give as much support to as many organizations as need it. But you can really rely on and trust in the Transvault partners. So the business of delivering migrations, whether it's a mailbox migration or a legacy archive, PST archive, is very specialized. It's a very specialized thing to do, and it demands the best of breed. So why is the business of migrating, or more importantly, I guess, for this audience, the business of migrating PSTs so specialist? Well, let's have a look at some of the problems that are caused by PSTs. So imagine a world, if you will, where PSTs are running wild. They're unregulated, you don't know where they are, you don't know what they're doing, you don't know what state they're in.
Pretty scary.
And now imagine a world where you have all of your data structured for life. All of the messages from your PST files have been put into Office 365. That's what we're going to talk about in the next section about how you can achieve that. But first, we're going to jump out back to our next poll question.
Okie dokie, here we go. Stand by, folks. Let's see, do you want to get that up on the screen? I think it's the currently planning one. So here we go. There we go, sir. Okay, Steve, can you see the quick poll now?
I don't see that. I don't get to see that for some reason.
Okay, great. Folks, if you could vote, there we go. We have about 25%. Let's get that back up over 70% again. If you could please give us single screen attention and go ahead and vote so we can answer, so we can respond to that. And we'll give it just another minute. We're hitting 60%, just another few seconds, and we'll close it and share it. And then, Steve, I'll figure out how to make you the presenter again. Getting better as I go.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Here we go and share it. Okay, so you should be seeing the results. Steve, do you see the results, sir?
No, they don't get shared with me for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh, okay. Marcella, we have. Yeah, would you like to go ahead and read them?
Yeah, we have yes, that 24% are in their research phase, 16% in planning phase. Interesting, just like our last webinar, 48% in progress or completed. We're hoping in progress because completed means that you possibly forgot your PSTs if you didn't do it with Transvault. And maybe, therefore, doing some research is 8%. And there's actually 4% who just came to hear your voice, Steve. They had nothing better to do today than attend this webinar.
I have that magnetic charm.
That 48%, you know, it's striking because it can tell us, right, one of two things. One, that you've completed it and you've decided to keep a very costly archive in place, or that you're in progress, have just encountered the fact that you have to contend with a bunch of PSTs and you need a company like Transvault to help you through it. So those are really, really good, solid results for us. You know, it gives us a good idea of our sense of the market. So thank you, everybody, who participated.
Perfect. Steve, I've made you the presenter, sir. I don't know if you could double check under screen sharing on your control panel or the little TV icon up at the top of your GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar control panel. Let me know. I think it needs a jumpstart. There we go, sir. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for taking the time to share your status with us. So, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of PST Insight. Getting to that post-migration view, everything nice and tidy in Office 365 can be a reality by engaging with Transvault and Transvault Insight. As you saw in my previous slide, your network can be a bit of a mess with PSTs roaming around all over the place, and you know you don't really know where they are. And
and I always talk to Steve about this because again, we've had such a focus on Insight lately. You know, a lot of companies look to e-discovery tools to solve a lot of their issues, including figuring out where PSTs are and what they're doing. I don't think that they realized that there was a solution that was so specific to their problem, such as Insight. And when we first started to kind of get together in these team meetings, whenever they would start talking about the problems with PSTs, they would be so dramatic about it that I always had this visual in my head of the walkers on The Walking Dead, just, you know, you can't contain them, you have to kill them, you have to get rid of them. So I had to include my hero or my network admin, if I could have him, to contain my PSTs in this presentation. But this is what I guess managing a PST could feel like if you don't have the right tool or if you don't have Rick charging the way.
Yeah, okay, Chella. So it's kind of that concept, but maybe without the blood and the gore. But you know, just an ability to maximize on your cloud investment by taking PST files to Office 365 in a nice and tidy way would be a great thing. A reflection on my own experiences, you know, I've already mentioned that before I started working for Transvault, I didn't know what a PST file was. It's interesting that they chose to recruit me given that information, but so I didn't know what PST files were. I didn't even really know what email archives were, and since working with Transvault, I've kind of looked back on that time as if PST files are a bit like Russian dolls. So we all have our own picture in our mind, but I just remember making backups of backups of backups, you know, from moving data from my PC onto a file share without really knowing what I was doing. Sometimes I could access the PSTs, sometimes I couldn't. So not knowing what I'm doing or why, and so back in those days, I used to quite frequently arrive at the office and get I'd have a pop-up message from Outlook saying that I've exceeded my mailbox quota. We had quite small mailbox quotas at the organization back then, and asking me would I like to auto-archive some of the contents. And so again, without really knowing what I was doing, I would click through and say, yeah, sure, okay, fine, let's archive some of this stuff. I'll click yes, 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 next, next, next on the little wizard, and then out would go my messages. My mailbox size would drop down to within my permitted quota, and I'd carry on with my work. Sometimes I'd push them to the C drive, sometimes I'd push them to a home drive, sometimes I'd back them up because I think I need to, but actually then I find out that my network admin is already backing up my laptop onto the network for me. And then that's how I create this sort of Russian doll effect of PSTs on top of PSTs on top of PSTs, creating loads and loads of problems that I don't really know I'm creating. So the idea behind Insight is that it lets you go and find the PST files, discover the problem that you've got in the first place, understand who the PSTs belong to by using our own algorithms for PST identification. Then once you've assigned an owner to that PST file, you can then deduplicate messages that are duplicated across PST files or even sometimes duplicated within a PST file so that you get a single instance repository per user, and then you can map them to the Office 365 mailbox, drop the messages into Office 365 where they belong. And by doing this discovery and tidy up, you can further refine what it is you want to take or what you want to leave behind by using our message level policy analysis. Within the product, we have a whole lot of supporting tools that make project management really simple. So, the key benefit there is it's actually pretty easy to deliver a migration project with Insight. And everybody is kept fully up to speed on the project, understanding everything about what's going on with audit reports, full chain of custody for your data, and message error handling so that you know if something goes wrong, what's gone wrong, what the error was, and how you can go about remediating it. So now that you know about the Transvault Insight features and benefits, if you had to build up a case for yourself or your leadership or something to include in your services arsenal, how would you go about describing that problem that Transvault Insight solves? Well, we can help you with that. Insight gives you the power to permanently and massively reduce your costs, so it can lower the hardware and software footprint via the removal of expensive infrastructure and maintenance. And of course that ties in very nicely with your whole philosophy and business case behind moving to the cloud. You get a real legal footing by removing the cost risk associated with any regulatory compliance failure. You get to understand the cost of a migration project. Quite often we find that the alternative to using an automated tool like Insight is to deliver a manual project using all kinds of complex scripting and things like that. But it can be extremely difficult, extremely hard work to deliver a project in that way. Project tracking is almost impossible. Understanding fail-safes around data loss, if you say lose a connection whilst running a migration into the target, let's say Office 365 connection drops, how do you know where you got to within that batch? How do you know what data's lost? How do you end up not duplicating the data into the target? So there's all kinds of project problems that are inherent in doing this for yourself, which Insight effectively removes. You know the limited liability for the software license, you know the limited liability for the for the professional services around that are wrapped around that software license to be able to deliver your migration project. And Transvault will be with you every step of the way to support you on your migration. And you know, I refer back to the list of clients that we've had, over 1,200 migration projects, the biggest companies in the world, the biggest financial organizations in the world, under the most stringent compliance regulations have trusted Transvault with their data. Of course, moving your data to the cloud, moving PST data to the cloud, allows you to maximize the return on investment from going to the cloud in the first place. So you can exploit its full storage offering and the accessibility of the data. You remove the risk of data loss by getting rid of PSTs. They're so fragile, they're so prone to corruption that it's just not a sensible way to store data. Microsoft themselves say that PSTs are not a sensible way to store data, and yet so much information from an organization is stored in that format. Using Insight will give you visibility of what you've got, what state it's in, what it's going to take to get it migrated, and how the project's progressing. And most importantly, an automated approach like this is going to put you in control. And what most organizations want more than anything else is control. They want to get control under they want to get company control of the data rather than it be in the hands of individual users. And you want to get all of your data into the cloud. And doing that is often ignored as part of a mailbox or archive move. So simply stated, Transvault Insight makes you the data enforcer, or in Chella's terminology, if we go back to her Walking Dead slide, it gets rid of the walkers once and for all. And it gives you the freedom and control of your data. Okay, so we're going to jump on to our last poll question for the day.
Okay, I resemble that remark. Hold on a second. Let me launch it. And it should be on your screen, folks. Again, if you could accommodate us by voting as you're able, thank you. If you did come in late, I'm going to just one more time remind you that we're in LA on the 31st, San Francisco on the 2nd, a couple weeks out for the one-day Office 365 and Windows 10 workshop. Information at smbnation.com. All right, we're up to 70%, so they're getting it down too, 73%. Look at this. We got a record turnout. I'll go ahead and close it and share it. And Marcella, do you see the results? Would you like to read them?
Yes, I do. So are you currently archiving your email data? 50% say yes, which is an interesting stat, much higher than our last webinar. 41% say no, which is also interesting and quite high, because I would want to understand either you're a really young company or maybe you don't have that type of policy internally. I guess it's also dependent on what size of the organization you are. 5% are not sure, which leads me to believe that you may not be in an IT admin role, but relying on one, and he's not telling you what's going on. And 5% are very honestly saying, what was the question again? I'm the one who signed up for this webinar just to hear Steve's voice. So, I mean, pretty interesting results from my perspective. I mean, that 50% on yes means that we're going to be calling 50% of you and trying to sell you something. What do you see, Steve?
You know, I think the really interesting thing here is that, and it was the same in our last session, that we have 50% of our audience have got an archive, and yet a high number have an issue with PST problems as well. So it's amazing how often there's an archive in place and that the compliance regulations are being taken care of within the archiving system, and yet unregulated data is strewn across an organization's network, and it's not being controlled, it's not compliant, it's not part of the policies of the archive or the exchange, and it needs to be controlled. You know, this is data that could potentially be the deciding factor in a litigation case, and it could potentially be stored on someone's USB drive, put into a bag, and that bag left on a train or a bus or in a in a service station, wherever, and it could be critical to your organization. So we would really strongly encourage you to think about the relationship between your archive and your PSTs and your overall email messaging requirements, particularly in light of those of you who are planning a move or currently moving to Office 365, and the continuation of that on-premise storage and how that, what synergy or lack of synergy that has with the policy to go to Office 365. It's just some interesting observations. Okay, so let's go a little bit more technical now and talk about the components of Transvault Insight. It's Insight has a distributed architecture. What do we mean by that? We have multiple components. Most software that you're going to use is going to be a client-server application. You've got a client that you use, your user interface that you work with. You're going to have a server in the back end, probably with a database, and they have an interaction. But the key thing about Insight is that we need to be able to scale, to map our software over the infrastructure of your organization. And so we have this tiered architecture where we have the Transvault database is talked to, if you like, by the master component, and then the master component has a one-to-many relationship with the controllers, and the controllers are the parts of your software that are of Insight that are really doing the work, and then they will farm out the instructions to the agent, which will go and capture the information that's required, feed it back to the controller, who will then fire it up to Office 365. And all of that is controlled by the two console units, the administration console, the main user interface, and the sister product, Insight Monitor, that allows you to deploy and maintain this Insight architecture. So a quick look at how Insight might be deployed across the across your network. You can see here we've got the database on a SQL server, and then we've got the master component on another server, and then the agent and the controller together, and then they feed, and then the agent is able to scan the PSTs that are out there on users' networks. The alternative is to have the controller on its own on a server, and then have the agent deployed right across the organization on the individual users' PCs, so that you can get unparalleled access to the PST files. And this is actually a really critical point. If you have the agent deployed on your users' PCs, then you are able to access PST files that are encrypted, locked for use by Outlook, and so you get much better penetration with the product and get much better visibility of your archive. Okay, so that was a little dip into the infrastructure there. Now I'm going to hand back over to Marcella, who's going to take us through any questions that we might have.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Now, Harry, I think that you guys normally address the questions, or people can use the chat feature, and then you can use the see.
Yeah, use the
and
chat
I think that there
feature.
should be some.
Yeah, I've already got 6 already. Folks, be sure to use the chat feature to ask any questions you have today. But let's get started. Are there issues with password-protected PSTs? Steve, password-protected PSTs?
No, so that was kind of the final point that I was just making there. Actually, that's a good question. So, no, it depends on the architecture of how you deploy Insight, but we are able to bypass password protection or encryption, however you want to call it, and be able to access the data within PST files, and also do so when the PST is in use by Outlook. So if the user is currently using that PST file, we can still migrate data out of it. We can still scan it, run policies against it, all that good stuff.
Cool. Another person asked, what happens with corrupt PSTs?
Right. Well, a corrupt a corrupt PST is a corrupt PST, I guess. So we're actually able to look within the PST file at the messages within it. So it really rather depends on the level of corruption and the impact on the corruption. We do offer, along with our migration projects, we offer something called adaptive development. And so if you find that you've got corrupt data, and there is a way in which that we can enhance our software to be able to handle that corrupt data, then that's something that we can do live in flight during your migration project. It's really your get out of jail free card that Transvault will allow you to play during your migration project. And to give an example of that, just a couple of weeks back, we had a case of a customer who their messages that they were trying to migrate, they had a lot of messages that had lost the attachments or they couldn't get access to the attachment. And so they approved a piece of the development work for us to replace the attachment with a text file attachment, which captured as much of the metadata from that attachment as we possibly could, inserted into the text file, so at least when that message gets migrated to Office 365, you've got a footprint that explains what should have been there and why it's not there anymore, to cover you for compliance or just for the user experience to understand why your attachment's gone.
Hey, speaking of the word footprint, next question is, what is the software footprint? Do you need to install an agent on each machine?
Right, so you don't need to install an agent on every single machine. Typically what we would suggest is that you start off by having an agent on the just on a centralized server along with a controller, and use that one agent to scan a sample of your network and understand a proportion of the PST issue that you have, and then gradually roll out the agents to PCs to give you that that access to any PST files that might be encrypted or locked for use. So you don't have to deploy the agent, but you get better functionality from the product and subsequently better results for your migration project if you do.
Next, how long does a project take?
Well, I mean, that's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, there are a huge number of variables that can affect a migration project. So, you know, how much data have you got? How much duplication of data is there? What kind of ingestion rates can you achieve going into Office 365? What kind of network performance do you get? Again, we would say that the way to handle that is to run a small proof of concept to get a picture of the size and scope of the project that you've got to deliver, to do a proof of concept, soup to nuts, delivering scan through to ingestion into Office 365 for a sample of your organization, and then build on that and extrapolate out of it how long the project's going to take. And as I've mentioned before, we have a channel of partners, expert partners around the world who are there to help you build that project definition, to help you scope out a statement of work for how the project's going to look, and to be able to keep you informed about, you know, the liability, the investment that's going to be required to deliver that migration project along the way. And at the end of that proof of concept, you should know how long the project's going to take and what kind of ingestion rates you're going to get and how long it's going to and how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, Steve, I'll tell you, my some people on the line know, but my area of study for my master's degree was project management. The one thing I took away from that is a little bit of project management humor. So if the project were to have a baby, you could hire 9 women and have a baby in a month. So there's some realities in project management, but that's not why we're here. Next question is, how much?
Hey, you know what? We have. I'm sorry. I'm just conscious of the time, and we have just a couple of things to close out on. So why don't we allow questions? You know, everybody can post questions if they want afterwards. We'll
take them. We'll take them offline. Yeah, we'll take them over time, and you can respond. Okay. Please proceed.
Yes, go ahead, Steve. Do you want to do the summary, and then we'll take it from there?
Yeah, sure. So, a very, very quick summary. The message that we want to leave you with is eliminate your PST headache. Do it with confidence. if you believe you've got a PST problem, even if you think you might, it's time to trial Transvault Insight.
And with that, it will come over to me. So again, my name is Marcella Mazzucca, and I run, obviously, the marketing for the business. And what we wanted to do is to give you a promotion that speaks for itself in a sense. If you have a problem with PSTs, or you're trying to define and see if you have a problem with PSTs, we're offering something from the beginning of May till the end of June of 2016, and that's the opportunity to get a free PST trial scan. So that means that you will be able to find all of the PSTs that are potentially on your network with a free scan by us. You can register for this scan on our website. You would go to www.transvault.com/MoveMyPSTs. So very simple. We're also going to send you a T-shirt for registering there. We're going to send you our Ask Me Why I'm Easy. Migration Easy is what we're talking about. This is a T-shirt that's going to be the hit, we think, of WPC, the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference. So we wanted to offer it to your audience in advance if they register. We obviously want people who have projects, people who are serious about the issue and who really, really can benefit from this scan. Transvault ourselves would not be conducting the scan. We only work through channel partners. They're our go-to guys. We're very selective, handpicked from ourselves. Most of them have been with our business pretty much since inception, and we've always maintained 100% channel organization structure. So that's usually who we connect you with, is our channel partner directly. If you do not have a problem yourself, but you know of someone who does, we do have a really cool referral program. And if you want to get into that referral program, all you have to do is send an email to gochannel@transvault.com with the subject line referral. That email will come to my group, and we will then put you in touch with a channel partner that will, one, engage you, and we will then put you into our referral queue so that anytime you send somebody our way, you actually get a monetary reward for that, which is pretty cool. If you have questions that you weren't able to ask during this webinar, we're going to also issue you our contact details. Again, my name is Marcella.Mazzucca@transvault.com, or you can reach out to Steve Douglas if you want to ask a technical or product-oriented question, steve.douglas@transvault.com. Please subscribe to his Seriously Douglasly channel. It's really, really funny if you haven't seen his last post. It was a little kind of take on the depth video around his issues when he was in Australia. We really had a laugh over it, but he posts really good technical content and also some really quirky stuff, so please subscribe to his channel if you can. On behalf of Transvault, myself, and Steve Douglas, we just want to thank you for participating today, and we hope to help you eliminate the PST headache with confidence down the road.
Excellent. And folks, again, a little bit of housekeeping. I'll be sending out the thank you letter probably tomorrow, because I got to get the recorded webinar up online and so on. So stand by for an email from me. I'll include this information, the contact information, in the thank you email. And once again, hope to see you on the 31st in Los Angeles and June 2nd in San Francisco for the one-day conversation Office 365. And quite frankly, migration topics are fair game. They're fair conversations to have. So thank you once again for attending Back to the Salt Mine. Thank you, Transvault. Have a great day.
Thank you.